How's it, guys? Welcome back to Rex to Rides, where we are still turning hard-earned cash into unfinished projects and broken dreams. So, and sometimes car keys. Here we have a 2000 Toyota Prado diesel. It's a 3-liter KZTE, and what has happened over time is that the central locking wasn't working, and this panel had been a bit blown. And what they did, instead of sorting out the panel, sorting out the central locking unit, they made a plan, and they put in an auto watch system, which then it's quite common on older Toyotas for these auto watch systems to stop working and start causing chaos with the ECU not communicating, and makes it very hard to program things, and it's a general problem. This auto watch also started to cause electrical problems, all the lights coming on in the dash, and so we've had that removed, and it still has the key flashing light, which always was there since I've known this car. So and then to start the car, this car had a set of keys like that. Now, it looks a bit odd because there's no transponder key. And a transponder key would usually look like this. And you can see there's a slot for a transponder to go in there. And but you can open it with a piece of tin and start and run it with this key. So something is going on here, and I always had my suspicion as to what is going on here. But we're going to find out and confirm. But just a few things that a bit of housekeeping that we do before performing anything like this. First off, we make sure the window is open, because the door's closed and you're buggering around the central locking keys, and you lock all your keys, there they are, in the car, and you are stuffed. Second thing, on your older car, your door stays tend to go and become a bit less taut, so you want to make sure you parked on a slight downward slope. That will allow you to not have to hold the door open the whole time. It just gets very annoying. It's not easy work. You're under the dash. You don't need to have your door closing on you the whole time. It's just really, really frustrating. So we do that. Window, door, make sure everything's clear here, because that's where we're going to put our screws down in order. We're going to look at the screws themselves, and you'll see over here they've all got these little lines in between the grooves. And looking at the size and looking at those lines, we are not dealing with a Phillips head 2. See, they don't have any lines. We are dealing with a posi drive 2. Can you see the difference in the bit? With these little triangles coming in here, they're going to fit better. They're not make your life so miserable. We also have a posi drive 2 screwdriver, just to loosen them up. Then this little electric one. Make sure you got all the bits and pieces you need first, because you don't want this thing hanging off, and then you have to go and fetch another bit from your toolbox. So you make sure they're all here. There's only one number 10 socket here, so we've got that. I always put a little extension on, and that's it. So we'll get onto the keys in a second. What we do always is loosen all the bottom fasteners first, then the top fasteners. The reason for this is, do the top fasteners first, it starts to hang. Older cars, it's going to start breaking all those bottom clips, and then you just got more cable ties and plastic welding and crap on your dashboard, and that's the last thing you need. History of the keys. First thing about the keys, this was a set of keys that was being used many years, and there goes the dog. Now if you look at that, that is the key for the doors, and this is the key for the ignition. Let's put that there. Now, what happens with keys over time, and our Hiluxes are older Hilux are notorious for this, is they start to wear. They actually wear faster than the lock itself. So this key is going to have a smoother profile. So what you can do with a good locksmith is ask them to make you a factory cut key. And what it does is they put that into the computer, and it reads, the model, the VIN, and everything. it reads what the key looks like, and it says when this key came out from the factory, it looked like that. Now they both work in the lock, so it's always good to do this before the key wears beyond any use whatsoever. Your newer keys are slightly more pricey, especially ones with fobs and that. Those are going to cost you a couple of grand. So what you actually want to do, now this one also came, but it's empty. So what you actually want to do is get yourself a factory cut. What they also do is they cut this new profile into a blank, just a plain key like that. And that is just to test it. So once they've cut this, now I've had this cut, it doesn't have a transponder chip in, because obviously we don't need it. We're going to find out why soon. Fits in nicely, nice, smooth, and it starts and runs the car. So they're going to cut that on a piece of steel, cost you an extra couple of hundred. And I'm very amp about keys. Always makes sense to have two fully functional keys. They don't necessarily need to have the remote and everything. Two keys that can unlock the car and drive it. Sometimes you're somewhere you can accidentally lock your keys in the car, because it happens no matter what, and then you're stuck. So you got to get yourself a locksmith. So what I always like to do when I'm getting a factory cut key is I cut it on a piece of steel first. Costs you like 150 or something for that, and then it's used to test. And then I take that key up somewhere under the car with cable ties and everything. So should I be somewhere and have the keys, let's say you're on a holiday, your keys get locked in the car, you go underneath, you cut it off, and you can unlock the door with that key. So there's always an access to the car. You cannot drive it with that key. You can unlock it, and then you take your key out of the car. So at the moment, we're sitting with 3 keys at work. And now it's a little bit on the keys. You'll see there's a difference there. This is a remote fob key, and that's just your standard transponder key. And your spare key doesn't need to be remote, depending on your budget. The transponder is a different unit to the remote fob. It's a different component, it's a different unit. This will work, it'll start the car, just don't have central locking. This is obviously central locking, and it's got a transponder in. So this is just an empty key that was given by Toyota, and it is cut. It's a factory cut. You can see it's quite nice, and that's great. But now, with the auto watch system being removed, we no longer have the central locking. Central locking works on a button, and central locking works on this other key that fits the 3 doors. It's a 2-door Prado, so there's one at the back. 2-door Prado, it's a little Prado. So there's one, there's another one, and you can see already here also, this was a factory cut made from that. So it's a different barrel, and it's slightly more pronounced on the edges, so that key is going to last longer than that key. One day, and these things don't, they stop working overnight. You'll put that key in your car, you cannot start it. You cannot turn it. You can't turn it. It just stops working. So best sooner rather than later. If you got an older car, get your keys sorted out, and let's get it done. Then you have your spare, and you got one taped up under the car, and the other one on your key ring, and the other one in the cupboard, safe in the house. So that's what we're sitting here now. Now, on your vehicle, there's a transponder. There's normally a transponder ring that sits around here, and that simply reads, it's a reader. It reads the code off the transponder, and it communicates that with the ECU and says this has got a legit key and you can start. It has nothing to do with the actual remote, the central locking. Central locking is either a different portion of the computer, or it's a separate unit on its own, and it's like a garage door receiver, and that it says it's locked, it's unlocked. That can talk and activate your alarm and do all sorts of things, but it is a separate unit, so separate parts of the computer, or separate computers, and separate parts of your key. So there's generally your 3 components. the one that locks, the one that is a transponder that's read by the ring, and then your profile that actually turns the barrel. And that's what we've got. So we have these keys all here. None of them have transponders in, all of them open the car. So I have my suspicions, and that's the bit that's giving it to me. So I've got a feeling that underneath there, in there, is a this ring with a transponder chip or a key or something that is just taped to it and put under the dash. And that's what they did, because in the central locking's not unit, and then now this and then we're changing that. So many people have worked on this. We'll put in an auto watch, that's enough security. We can give them 10 keys, and that's sort of where now the auto watch has been removed, and we've got central locking with a key and with this button, but not with a remote, which is always really handy. And there is no transponder security on the car. So we're going to open that up, we're going to have a look, and see what we can find. So yeah, but cover off, came off easily enough, and there you can see this is just a rubber that sticks on, covers over. There is no receiver ring or reader ring around here. There are two little bolts, one there and one there, so that's where it's supposed to bolt onto. So I know already, and I'm now look, and when you look around, you can see stuck up in there is a key that is taped to, and it looks like it is a good profile, but I want to see what's inside there, because this definitely has a transponder. These Toyota chips are set, so bypassing that is really difficult, and so what they would normally do is just that. Suspicion confirmed, so I want to cut that off. See, what we want to do is get two of these going with a door unlocker taped up somewhere, and then we have two proper correct keys that are going to run the car as it should be. So we're going to open that up, and hopefully there's a remote fob that works. Otherwise we can just get an internal for that with a transponder, and that will have a transponder code, so that can be read by a code reader and copied over to that. Just on that, if you also got that factory cut blank somewhere and you're somewhere where you need a new key made, what you can do is most of these guys can read transponders and write transponders, so that's easy enough, but most guys cannot do a factory cut, and so to have that, and they can just do a normal key copy off that, it'll work and it'll give you a great key. But you don't want copies of copies of copies. So we've got masters, and we're quite happy with that. So we're going to open that up and have a look, see. We can start fidgeting and see what happens. So as I suspected, there is a full key in there, and this key does turn. I'm going to try too much because it's a bit toasty, but it turns. That's great, but it's a bit broken. It's broken there, and there's no lights coming on, so we haven't determined that it doesn't open yet. We have determined that its battery's flat. What we can do now with this key out and away from there is everything comes on, right? It ain't gonna start. It ain't gonna start until that is right next to there. Let's see if I can do this. And there it's running. So it's got the transponder, and the fob isn't working, probably just battery. So now we know what we're dealing with here. We can start opening up and see if we can't make one good working key, get the transponder copied over onto this key, and let's see what we can do with that. Let's get it apart. Right guys, so it turns out the insert for this contains a transponder chip also, but it's not part of the same circuitry, because the battery was dead on this, it wasn't working, and it still worked. The transponder reader read it and started the car with it. Without it, the key did not work. So what I have done is simply change the battery, and good news it was already programmed. Now you can program these with a manual sequence. You just type in program whatever car it is, key fob, and there's a manual sequence you go through to get the car in programming mode, and that will get it to start. But the transponder, you have to actually read it, write it to a new chip. So we have our transponder reader back in, so that's how it should be. And now the car's got security. We'll just put the cover on there, the cover's off, but everything is reverted to normal. You've got your central locking, your key works with the transponder. None of the other keys are going to work. So before that key gets lost or damaged, soon as possible, probably tomorrow, I'll just see if I can get a transponder chip written and popped in here and test that, and then perhaps order another one of these, so we have 2 keys and a spare. And guys, yeah, so as you can see, if we put this one in, the car is not going to start. Doesn't like the key. Put this one in. Note, you can't jump those wires. It isn't going to work because it's actually reading a code off the transponder, giving the code to the ECU. ECU says legit key, okay, you may start. So there you have it. This car has now been finally, after a very long time, reverted to normal. I'm very happy about that. It makes me more comfortable. And yeah, guys, so if you enjoyed this video, if it helped you a bit, just like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.